This is my little sign to get them to start the, okay, very good. I'll call to order the Arvada City Council meeting for September 17, 2018. Apologize for the little delay. We were having some fun conversations upstairs, and trying to get me to get through it all was taking longer than it should have. So with that, I'll call upon Councilmember Dot Miller.
Thank you. Would you please join me in a moment of silent reflection? And now if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kristen Rush, if you'll do the roll call.
Williams.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Marriott.
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Ford.
Here.
Councilmember Jones. Councilmember McGough.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Entertain a motion with regard, Mr. Pfeiffer.
Yes, Mayor. I move to excuse David Jones from this evening's business meeting.
Mr. Jones is in China, so made it a little rough for him to get here tonight. Ms. Ford, if you'll cast your vote, you hit the speak button instead. There we go. All votes are cast. That passes 6-0. Mr. Jones is excused from tonight's meeting. Next, we have recognitions. I'll call upon Councilmember Mark McGough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my honor this evening to issue and read into the record a proclamation for Constitution Week. The United States Constitution stands as a testament to the tenacity of Americans throughout history to maintain their liberties, freedoms, and inalienable rights. The Daughters of the American Revolution began the tradition of celebrating the Constitution for 1 week in September, beginning in 1955. During Constitution Week, citizens are asked to reflect on their responsibility to protect and defend the Constitution and to study the historical events which led to the framing of the Constitution in September 1787. The Dr. Susan Anderson Chapter, National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution, was organized in Arvada in 2008. Members of the chapter are present to accept this proclamation for Constitution Week, with Regent Shala Lowe as the spokesperson. Would you like to approach the podium, please? And I'll read into the record the proclamation itself. It reads as follows. Whereas September 17, 2018 marks the 231st anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Arvada hereby recognize the week of September 17 to 23, 2018 to be Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution that they had in 1787. This proclamation is dated today, the 17th day of September 2018, signed by Mayor Mark Williams and all other members of the council. And I'll bring this down to you, and thank you for being here this evening to receive this proclamation.
City Council members. The tradition of celebrating the Constitution was started many years ago by the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, NSDAR. In 1955, the NSDAR petitioned Congress with a resolution this week of observance for the foundation of the American form of government was signed into law by President Dwight D. Eisenhower on August 2, 1956. George W. Bush officially declared the inception of Constitution Week in 2002. The Constitution is a living document that assures each citizen of the freedoms Americans cherish and appreciate. As members of the Daughters of the American Revolution, it is our responsibility to keep our ancestors' legacy alive by promoting the ideals they fought valiantly to give their descendants. As our commitment to encourage study and educate the public about the Constitution, the Dr. Susan Anderson Chapter NSDAR has placed a display about the Constitution in both the Arvada and Stanley Lake libraries. During this week, we invite you and the public to view these displays. We also invite you and the public to stop by our chapter's booth at the Arvada Days Festival this coming Saturday on September 22nd. We hope to inspire the continued study of the Constitution not only now, but throughout the year. On behalf of the Dr. Susan Anderson Chapter NSDAR, it is my privilege to accept this proclamation. Thank you for helping us to observe the 231st anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America.
Thank you. Next, and one of the favorite things I get sometimes are letters from moms and dads who say, hey, I've got a Eagle Scout that's ready to receive their award. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dot Miller to do the honors for us.
Thank you. Mr. Wyback, would you come down and I would read this for you? It's Wyback or Weebeck? Weebeck. Thank you for letting me know. I wanted to make sure I got it right. So Mr. Weebeck is achieved Eagle Scout, and the City Council recognizes Charles Franklin Weebeck for achieving the rank of Eagle Scout, the highest rank a Boy Scout can attain. Only 6% ever even achieve this honor. For his Eagle Scout project, Charles worked on the trees at Arvada West. The project required several months of planning, during which Charles raised donations to help pay for the trees, was able to negotiate a significant discount, and put together a large group of volunteers. He and his volunteers dug up old trees, removed rotten stumps, and planted 9 new trees. Charles Weebeck is currently a junior at Arvada West High School, where he is president of the junior class. After graduation, he hopes to study botany at Colorado State University and someday work at the Center for Disease Control. Now I'm going to read this certificate of recognition and they'll bring it on down to you. The City of Arvada presents this to Charles Franklin Weebeck, awarded in recognition of your hard work, dedication, and enthusiasm in achieving the high honor of the rank of Eagle Scout. And it is signed, presented this 17th day, September 2018, and signed by the mayor and members of City Council.
Now, Mom, come on down and get a good shot for a close-up there. Great, you bet.
I don't really have much else to say except it feels good to be recognized. And I'm probably going to hang this up in my room, and I really can't say much more than thank all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your hard work. And I see we've got another scout in the audience. If you'd like to come down and give us your name and what badge you're working on. We always like to recognize both Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts and Brownies, all of the above.
Hello, my name is Anders Woolley. I'm from Troop 1876 and the Communications Merit Badge.
Very good. Where are you going to school?
Ralston Valley High School.
Very good. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I've got some, that completes our recognitions. I've got some people who have signed up for public comment. I'll start with Randy Mormon.
Good evening, Mayor Williams and members of the Arvada City Council. My name is Randy Moorman. I'm on the Arvada Sustainability Advisory Committee. I have a briefing paper for you that I will, is it okay if I bring it up? Okay.
Thank you.
So it's been a while since we've presented before you about our work on waste and our current waste system. And that's because we've been doing some homework. Mayor Pro Tem Marriott suggested that we go out and try to collect some data on what people are paying, whether they're in HOA or not HOA for their services. So we have done that, and so we've in this briefing paper that I just handed you summarizes in the chart our findings. There's three things that I want to hit upon tonight. One is that our current system is not meeting our community's needs. We know that Arvadans want to recycle more, and that's according to a recent survey. More than 90% support more recycling options. We can remember back in May of 2017, we had a free recycling event which we had to close a week early after our 5th day because of the high volume of material that was coming in from and being collected from our residents. And we really don't have a convenient way to collect and recycle those types of large items like mattresses, electronics, and even yard waste. The second point I want to make is that our current system isn't efficient, which results actually in higher customer prices. Our open hauling system, according to our website, we have about 11 different trash companies that serve the city. And that results in large inefficiencies that actually increase our prices rather than reduce them through competition. And this is because haulers are traveling throughout our city, crisscrossing and picking up here and there instead of picking up every single home. And so that comes at a cost to the hauler, and then they have to divide that cost amongst the number of people that they're serving. And because they have a smaller population that they're serving, there's a higher price. Where if you were picking up every single home and you were serving a much higher population of homes, then you can actually lower that price that you're charging to your customers. And so the table then summarizes our findings, and I would not say this is a statistically significant survey at all. I would recommend the city actually conduct that or contract with someone to do that. We basically were just able to collect information on anyone that would answer our phone call. But it's a small sample size, but I would say that it's very similar to what other cities are finding, like Lakewood, that did conduct statistically significant surveys. And so the Arvada household that is not in an HOA is paying between $20 and $29 per month for recycling and trash. If they're in an HOA, it's between $8 and $15. And HOAs, we know, can coordinate their trash service and actually then contract with one hauler, and that lowers their price. And then we look at other cities like Golden, Lafayette, Louisville, who contract with a single hauler, and they have even lower prices that can go as low as $7 in our neighbor Golden. And they also get extra services that we know our city wants, like picking up large items and yard waste that we don't have or aren't able to offer right now. So they get more service and pay less. So finally, I want to point out that the current system is inequitable, and we see flawed pricing signals because people that want to recycle have to pay more. And so that's an economic disincentive to do the right thing. And people that are more wasteful actually get a lower bill. And so we don't think that that is right, and we want to correct that inequity. So I will finish there, and I know there's some others from the committee who would like to speak as well. So thank you.
Thank you for the information. Next, I'll call upon Luke Richard. Or Ricard, maybe?
Yes, Ricard.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Mayor Williams and members of the council. It's good to be here. I wanted to share some personal experience with you. I'm one of those Arvada citizens who ends up paying extra for a service that doesn't meet the same parameters that other citizens of Arvada get to pay for. Over the last few years, my wife and I have contracted with many of the smaller haulers that offer services to Arvada citizens. We found, generally speaking, that it's very difficult to get quality service from many of the smaller providers. We've actually personally observed our waste haulers loading the recycling and the trash into the same dumpster and driving it off together without offering a refund or anything like that. I don't know whether it's more difficult for these individuals to recycle or not, but We also find that we end up paying more, as our research has shown, for an inferior service. And I'd like to point out that the people that are in HOAs who can take advantage of the bulk buying cost savings tend to be people with better economic means. So the system that we have currently is it makes it harder to recycle, harder to get rid of waste that can be toxic or hazardous, and it also disproportionately affects people of lesser means in our city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your input. Christina Gonzalez Abram. Good evening.
Yes, Abram, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Williams and City Council for hearing our public comment. I too am on the Arvada Sustainability Advisory Committee. My husband and I moved to Arvada almost 1 year ago, and we've come to really, really love this community very much, and we're excited to raise our family here. Before moving to Arvada, we lived in Sloan's Lake neighborhood of Denver, and we had access to organized waste hauling services with trash, recycling, compost, and we moved to Arvada and were pretty quickly overwhelmed by the number of haulers that we had to choose from. We landed on a waste hauler, received our bins, and then just sort of expected an uneventful experience in disposing of our waste. And what we actually found was very much the opposite. We've had to engage on a regular basis with our waste hauling customer service because they've repeatedly failed to actually meet the services that we're paying for consistently. And we've also had numerous occasions where trash and recycling just weren't picked up, and we just get the same response every time, which is, I'm sorry that this shouldn't happen. And as a client, I agree. I expect more. So I'm excited for Arvada to consider some better options for municipal waste hauling, and I urge the council to please consider how we might transition to organized hauling, something that will increase our service reliability, decrease cost to customers, and reduce, importantly, the amount of heavy vehicle traffic in our neighborhoods. We have a lot of kiddos in Alta Vista that run around, and to Randy's point, the more decentralized, the more trucks that are driving around, the more danger it poses to the kids and to the pets that are running around our neighborhood. And as somebody with expertise in air quality, I know it also can affect the air quality in our neighborhood. So again, really excited for the City Council and for the city on the whole to explore options that provide better service, more reliability, and more cost efficiency for residents. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next, Stephen Nixon.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I too am on the Arvada Sustainability Advisory Committee, but I'm here tonight to speak as a private citizen about my experiences with waste hauling. I understand that very few of you have had the opportunity to contract yourselves with waste haulers because you have the advantage of being in an HOA. So describing some of our experiences may be very helpful for you to understand how the rest of us get to experience this. I've had the distinct displeasure of having to go through figuring out who the haulers are, what their services are, which may or may not be what is described on either the city website or their own website. Most of the haulers are not local. We did initially contract 9 years ago with a local small company. We had quite good service from them, and then they sold out to a large company. And it's not just the small companies that have problems with service and pickups. Sometimes the largest company also has those same problems. After having those problems repeatedly, we ended up changing companies. We've typically had poor service, missed pickups, and lots of excuses. One of my biggest gripes is that we put out our trash every 2 weeks and our recycling every 2 weeks. We typically have about twice as much recycling as trash, and yet I'm paying exactly the same as my neighbor who puts out 10 or 15 barrels of trash every week, because that's the pricing structure that our current system allows to be happening. That's not a competitive environment, and I'm subsidizing my neighbors who are putting a lot more trash out and doing less recycling. There's also too many trucks, too much road wear, safety issues, pollution. We probably have 8 to 10 trash trucks going down our street on a weekly basis. My sister, who is visiting from out of town, was appalled that we have trash trucks up and down our streets every day of the week. It's pretty disappointing. There's an opportunity to do a more structured system, whether that's districts or a single hauler where we recompete every few years. I think we can solve this problem and improve our services to all of our citizens. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for your comments. I do want to thank the Sustainability Committee. You're obviously very interested and very energetic on this issue in terms of educating City Council. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. It's a tough area for us because some of us still have battle scars from the last time this issue was out there. And so it's certainly one that's coming back up for discussion, and I appreciate you keeping the heat on City Council on it. So with that, next I'll call on Sharon Conan and Nina, apparently.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
And Councilman. I'm Sharon Conan. I'm on the Festivals Commission for the City of Arvada, and also chair for the next event, which will be Arvada Days, coming up this coming Saturday.
Hi there, I'm Nina Piccinini, and I'm a co-chair with Sharon for Arvada Days.
We would like to invite all of you to come join in our second annual Arvada Days event, which is happening at the east side of Arvada at Clear Creek Valley Park, located at 58th and Tennyson Street. And again, it's this Saturday from 10 o'clock to 3:30 in the afternoon. We're really excited about it this year, not only because we have historical reenactors, which include a Lakota Indian, a teepee. We have a variety of vendors and local fiddlers and stringers. But this event was originated by the Commission to celebrate Arvada's humble beginnings as miners and farmers. And we encourage everyone to dress up for the era, 1850s to 1890s. This year, we are sponsoring, well, actually, the Colorado Parks and Wildlife is sponsoring our first annual Kids Fishing Derby, which will include kids from 5 to 15, and they've provided all the fishing rods and reels for us to use. And the park has created a new dock, and it should be a lot of fun for the kids and families that come out and join us.
In addition to those activities, we're also going to be hosting a Colorado Vintage baseball game. So we're thrilled to have council members John Marriott as well as David Jones come out to play with us. And our team will be the Arvada Miners against this Colorado Vintage baseball team. So please, everyone, come cheer us all on. It'll make for great fun. In addition to all of these activities, we're also going to be holding a farm-to-table dinner that evening. So, bringing in a local chef, organic chef. We'll have a local brewery represented as well. So, tickets still available, and would encourage everybody to come out to those activities as well. But just an overall wonderful event, and we hope you all can join us.
And one added comment, because David Jones is in China, Mayor, Mr. Pfeiffer, Nancy, Mark, and Dot, we encourage you to come play, okay? Just in case we need some backups. Pardon me? Yes, we do have shirts.
We have extra.
Yes.
Oh, there goes that excuse.
The mayor will be there.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Nice tag team, Sharon and Nina. I like that. Next, I'll call upon our Apex board member, Vicki Pine.
Mayor, council members, just wanted to take an opportunity to come and introduce myself as the candidate for State House Representative for District 27. To let you know that I am running officially and formally, and I wanted to kind of share a little bit about myself. I know you guys know that I'm on the board of directors for Apex, but wanted to let you know a little bit more about me and why I'm running. I have been in Arvada for 25 years. I have 5 kids. They went to Sierra, Oberon, and Ralston Valley. And I have been the team mom for numerous sports teams because they were all athletes, and been the Booster Club president at Ralston Valley, very involved in all of those years. Since then, I have become involved with Apex, but besides that, I'm on the advisory committee for the human services for your group, for the CSBG funds, and also on the community services advisory board for the county, for Jefferson County, doing the same kind of work. So I have a love of this community. I have a passion for serving in the community, and so as I was approached to by the vacancy committee when Lang Sias decided to run for lieutenant governor, I was excited and humbled by the fact that I was approached by people that thought that I would be able to take on this challenge, and I do it because I want to represent the community that I love and that I am working in already on a regular basis. That said, I am running into some issues with my campaign signs. I have run a couple of campaigns in the past for different candidates and had larger signs than what I have put up for myself, but I've been targeted by somebody who is calling specifically on my signs and saying that they're unsightly and too large for the locations that they're in. I have looked at the information on the site that talks about the sign sizes for campaign signs, and it seems to be there's a little bit of confusion. It says that I can have a 32 square foot sign. Mine are 6 by 8, so under that. But in the same line, there's also something that says that those can be on residential properties, but the residential property needs to be 2 acres. So there are not too many 2-acre sites, and I know the signs, I have worked as a campaign manager in the past and put up larger signs in the places that I have my signs right now. I also know that my signs are being targeted specifically, even though they're next to other larger signs in the same locations. And so I'm asking that, that maybe there be a moratorium on enforcing that code right now until this can be cleared up a little bit, so that I'm not just being targeted, but so that everybody can campaign. I know even in your campaigns, my signs are in locations that many of you have used for your own campaigns. So I would like to maybe see if we can get that suspended until we can get some more clarification, so that my friends and neighbors and supporters are not being bugged and harassed and bothered by people. Thanks.
Ms. Mine, I'll tell you that we're looking back at our tapes. We're reviewing the tapes of some of our discussions as it pertained to the sign code, and so we're looking into the questions that you're asking tonight.
Okay, great.
Great.
Thank
Thanks for
you very
being part
much.
of the electoral process.
I know. Welcome to it. Yeah.
Next, I'll call upon Edward Porter.
Hi, Mayor and Council. This is actually relatively relevant because of the Sables development, but I decided it's a little bit off topic, so I figured I'd talk to it during the public comment. This has to do with the cabin that's on the Sable development. I have a little email here. I'll drop it off to you guys. I sent this into the Speak Up Arvada email address. I just haven't got a response back, so I figured I'd come and drop it off for you guys. But basically what I'm presenting to you guys is the possibility of a public-private partnership to relocate that cabin over to the Van Bibber Park. It's if you don't know, it's kind of an interesting looking cabin. I haven't been able to do a full, research on what exactly the cabin's history is, but it is a pretty cool little cabin. Anyway, it kind of highlights, this project would highlight the proximity of Arvada to the foothills. It has, Van Bibber Park has great views of the mesas. The goal here would be to have, a community meeting space and increase the accessibility to the outdoor space. It would probably be a photographer and event planner's dream, and possibly a future source of city revenue. So the idea would be to move it over there, refurbish it, and operate it as a short-term rental for people to use as either a staycation or just some kind of getaway and experience Arvada probably the way it was a couple hundred years ago, with open spaces around creeks. Some of the challenges would be outlining some kind of a public-private partnership to include, a rental of the property, the Van Bibber Park. I believe I could get enough people to finance the move and the refurbish, and then what I would need from the city would be the ability to operate this, the short-term rental. And if we work out in the agreement, there'd be a payback to the city, and/or over time it would become owned by the city and become a resource that you guys could use. Some other challenges would be building within a public slash wetland space, land use agreements, and also the cabin, I believe they want moved before December this year. So it's a little bit timely. That's why I wanted to come and talk to you guys about it. Some of the requested actions I have from you is just take it up maybe for a public discussion. I know that the short-term rentals is a bit of a topic, and I think it's coming up in November for your discussion. And possibly convene a little committee on, a way ahead for this kind of a project. So anyway, I'll drop this off as my contact information. I think it might be a win-win to save a little bit of Arvada's history and also be something that, the community could use in the future. So thank you.
Very good. Why don't you give that to staff, and staff can get a sense of, is this something that we ought to be looking at, and what options, if any, exist for us? I know that building's been for sale. You're looking at purchasing it? Is that?
Well, I contacted the developer, who knows, maybe here based on the agenda, I don't know. But yeah, they're interested in selling it. I think, I live just north of there. I haven't seen any other building in Arvada that looks like it or is of the same kind of vintage look. And who knows, it might have no historic relevance whatsoever, but the fact is it has been in that same creek for a lot longer than a lot of us have probably lived here, and it'd be cool to kind of keep it. So. Okay,
thank you very much. Okay, we got a couple items on the consent agenda. First is item is R18096, a resolution amending the number of members of the Arvada Art and Culture Commission. The second one is R18097, resolution authorizing the submission of the 2018 Justice Assistance Grant application for the Arvada Police Department. Do I have a motion? Ms. Ford.
I move that consent items R18-096 to R18-097 be approved.
Motion is for approval of the consent agenda. And Ms. Ford, again, if you'll vote. No problem. All votes are cast. And that passes 6-0 with Mr. Jones being absent. Thank you. Okay, now we'll open public hearings. I'll open the public hearing on Council Bill 18098, a resolution approving the proposed service plan for the Haskins Station Metropolitan District. Mr. Devon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The purpose of this item is to consider the proposed service plans for the Haskins Station Metropolitan District. Service plan has been reviewed by staff, and changes have made by the applicant related to that review. In fact, I would actually say this was a very collaborative process in the course of putting the service plan together. The proposed service plan is prepared in accordance with Chapter 91 of the Code. If the council approves the proposed service plan, there would be a contribution of $2,255,213 that would be made by the developer. As I think the council is aware, the Haskins Station is a 6.21 acre residential development on the northwest corner of Quail Street and Ridge Road. The proposed district is to plan for, design, acquire, construct, install, relocate, redevelop, and finance the public improvements associated with the Haskins development. In addition, a regionally significant project to deal with traffic congestion around the intersection of West 52nd Avenue and Ward Road has been a concern for many residents. We have a very low level of service there for traffic. To help alleviate this issue, along with a number of other projects in the city, in the area, the city is working with the City of Wheat Ridge and Jefferson County on completion of an intergovernmental agreement to evaluate and explore funding options for the design and construction of these needed improvements. This joint agreement is set to allocate 40% of the cost to both Arvada and Wheat Ridge, and the remaining 20% to Jefferson County. This agreement has not been finalized. However, we are working with Wheat Ridge in proceeding with a traffic study to ascertain the future needs and traffic impact of West 52nd Avenue and Ward. Once the study is complete and the construction needs are assessed, we'll determine what the full cost of the project are. It is possible that we could be looking at our contribution to be around $5.72 million. So that exceeds the amount of money that is available in this service plan. However, there's another item that you're going to be considering tonight that will help us to make up part of that difference. The financing details associated with the service plan are included in your report. If you have any questions about that, we would be happy to talk to you about that or answer any questions that you may have. But staff is recommending approval of this intergovernmental agreement.
Thank you. Is there a member of the proponent that wishes to speak on this issue? And Mr. Daly, this is not quasi-judicial, correct?
No.
I don't get to swear you in tonight.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Chris Elliott, on behalf of the application, and I won't be here next week, so you don't have to worry about seeing me multiple weeks in a row here. But thank you for the opportunity, and I'm going to be very, very brief and indicate that we have been working closely with staff on a very innovative way to utilize the Metro District for the Haskins Station project that you approved last week. We're excited to be able to do that. It does go above and beyond what we've seen, frankly, and I think that you all have seen in terms of the way to use a Metro District to not only construct improvements that are significant within a project, adjacent to a project, but in this case, improvements that are in the vicinity of a project. And in essence, through the use of an increase in the debt mill levy cap from 40 to 50, we will be able to generate in excess of an amount equal to $2.25 million that will go towards the amount that Mr. Devon talked about being Arvada's share of the total. The Sabel's Metro District, which is going to follow this hearing, will contribute $1.17 million towards those regional improvements. Again, we think this is a great way to utilize the district opportunity and make some significant improvements within the vicinity to benefit not only us, the city, but the residents that are there. There are a few tweaks within the service plan, a couple little mistakes that were made there, and we'll make sure to point those out, but I wanted to provide the introduction and answer any questions relative to that, and then give the attorneys the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, members of council, I wanted to just add something to Mr. Devon's comments earlier. I've worked on Metropolitan District for quite a while, as you know, and I don't think I've ever seen such collaboration on dealing with a couple of metropolitan districts, especially not only from staff's perspective and the great work of staff, especially Matt Knight in helping us come to the correct number, but I think that the patience that was exhibited by the developer and his attorney and the partners in the development is really extraordinary on this particular development. I think that they've gone kind of above and beyond what we had previously set as a mark, as a target, if you will, as to where we were going to go. And so I didn't want to not let that statement be in the record tonight, because this has really been extraordinary, the collaboration and the patience that has been shown by the developers in this matter.
Thank you for that input. Yes, ma'am.
Megan Murphy with White Bear Ankley, attorney for the developer. I am here to admit a mistake in the service plan on page 11, about the middle of the page, if you care to look, of the service plan, not necessarily of your packet. It says, this is the third paragraph under section I. It says the maximum debt mill levy for the repayment of debt shall not apply to the district's operations and maintenance mill levy. I made an error in drafting. In all of our discussions and the financing plans presented in all of our meetings, we reflected a shall not, and then I just missed it on the keys. So we're asking if you approve this service plan tonight that you approve that minor modification. I spoke to Mr. Daly about it this evening, and he is okay with that change.
What
So
I'm sorry, which paragraph?
the third paragraph down from section I, it's about the middle of the page right before annual report. Page 11. Got it? Yes, so again, I apologize and thank you for staff for working with us on that mistake. And of course, any questions you have, happy to answer.
Okay. I do have some individuals who have expressed interest in this. First is Summer Clark, who doesn't wish to speak, but wishes to indicate that Summer Clark is in favor of the issue. Then I have Chuck Oxer. Mr. Oxer, if you'll come down, and it's good to see you, sir.
Chuck Oxner, 11748 West 54th Place, Arvada, Colorado. First, I want to take a moment to thank you and commend you as the City Council for approving this project at City Council at the meeting that I was unfortunately not able to attend. If I had been there, I would have spoken in favor of the development. My wife and I have lived next to this project for 34 years, and I knew at some point there would be neighbors to the east of me, and we've worked with the developer, and they have listened to our concerns regarding saving of the trees and open space and all of the things around us with the ranch-style homes contiguous to our area, and they were a great developer, and we know all about great developers, Mr. Mayor, in the city of Arvada. So I want to thank you on that, and just say that regarding this plan and what the end result with 52nd and improvement are, the traffic in this entire area, I there again commend the developer and what they're doing, and I think this will be a benefit to the entire area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Tim Knapp.
Good evening, City Council. Tim Knapp, 11747 West 54th Place. I'm a neighbor of Mr. Oshner immediately to the north, and like the Oshners, we are immediately adjacent to the open space, which is to the east of our property. I want to reiterate everything that Mr. Oshner said. He and I met with, Chris Elliott and his partners throughout this project, and the one thing that was said earlier today, I'd like to also reiterate is how this partnership listened to the community, listened to the neighbors as to what their concerns were. Mr. Oshner and myself shared equal concerns with respect to how the property behind us was to be developed or not, how it was to be left in an open space configuration, but also how the houses were to be made compatible to those in Rainbow Ridge. The other thing that I was part of a committee with the Rainbow Ridge Homeowners Association that dealt with or looked at this development. And one of the concerns that, Rainbow Ridge probably expressed at the public hearing last week was traffic, not only from this development, but others. And Mr. Elliott and his partners, listened to the concerns to the extent that they could. And I feel that they went over and above, what any other developer would normally do as far as addressing some off-site issues and concerns that were raised. They didn't have to, they did, and as a result of their commitment to the things that they've agreed to for how to leave the space, how they're laying the development open, and the construction and the housing, as well as the off-site improvements that they are willing to participate in, certainly give a 100% endorsement to the district that's being proposed here tonight, as well as the development. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other member of the public wish to address City Council on this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion. Open it up for City Council questions or actions. Mr. McGaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for staff, and basically it's just wondering kind of the formula, if you will, for arriving at the amount of money that would be coming to the city, the $2,255,000. Could you just give us a thumbnail sketch of what that formula is and how we arrive at that amount?
Let me see if I can take a shot at trying to answer that. This is a little different than what we have done in the past. In the past, with other metropolitan districts, we've settled on a per unit a number, and then just applied that per unit number to the individual development itself. In this instance, because of the extraordinary nature of the proposed intergovernmental agreement between Wheat Ridge and Jefferson County and the City of Arvada, and understanding, as Mr. Devon indicated, the significant costs for dealing with that intersection at 52nd and Ward, and then along 52nd as you go east, we had a number of discussions with the developers on what that amount was, and basically just reached it primarily based upon what we believed was their portion of the city's share of that cost for that IGA. So it was different than what we have done in the past, and that's what I mean by we kind of set a different bar because of the extraordinary nature of those costs with those regional improvements. And I'll defer to Mr. Knight perhaps if he has anything more.
Yeah, we basically took the numbers that we had for West 72nd Avenue and Indiana intersection project, which is a similar size and scope, projected them out for a similar size project at 52nd and Ward. And then we also received a preliminary cost estimate for West 52nd Avenue from Wheat Ridge for their programming of that roadway. And then we just took the city's 40% share of that and determined what we felt was an appropriate percentage that the developer should contribute to that.
Okay, so it's the total cost, acknowledging that our part of that is, or our responsibility, obligation would be 40% of that total amount, and then looking at the impact that this particular development would, the impact it would have on the intersection, the traffic that might be generated, and coming to a figure. Okay, thank you very much. That's helpful.
Mr. Fiver.
Maybe Mr. Elliott can come on up, or his attorney. I just want to, for the audience and for this area, when you talk about a metro district, I know you've been in front of us before about HOA fees, no HOA fees, tax deductible. Can you maybe explain kind of like the additional tax and what would it cover within the development? I mean, we talk about an impact fee, but you're going to actually have a lot more. So maybe you can talk about what does that cover to a resident if I was interested in buying it? What does that cover? And then is there still an HOA fee on top of this?
And I should just jump in
Sorry.
also because I neglected this, and I apologize to the council and to everyone tonight. The developer was really kind enough to provide me, and I provided it to the city council earlier tonight, the cost considerations for a metro district versus a homeowners association. And I've supplied the council with that particular chart because, as I recall, council last time we did one of these metro districts asked that question. That came up, I think, in the proposed metro district that was over there at about 72nd in Indiana, that we decided not to move forward on, and so the developer was kind enough to provide that through his legal counsel to us. So I didn't know if you wanted to cover that as well as what Mr. Pfeiffer's comments or question was.
Sure. Let me first try and attack your question this way and say that the legislature a number of years ago permitted special districts, in this the particular case metropolitan districts, to have the authority to act like homeowners associations do in all respects. And that's everything from design review to managing paint colors and park cars and those kinds of things. And historically, and this is no reflection on Arvada or anyone here, but there's been a certain amount of public improvements that generally end up in the hands of the neighborhood. And the one that comes to mind the most to me is drainage improvements. It used to be that drainage ponds and drainage improvements were the purview of the local government and were taken by the local government. As time passed, it became harder and harder for the local government to take that responsibility and manage it in a way that works. And so those things got ultimately in the hands of homeowners associations. So in many cases, you have a really an engineered structure in the form of a detention pond, engineered outlet pipes that need to be maintained on a regular basis in a certain sort of way. But then you have a homeowners association board that's made up of initially the first handful of folks that buy in the community and take on that responsibility. Some of them like it because they're altruistic. Some of them like it because they like to have some authority over their neighbors in terms of those things. And they don't have the expertise or knowledge to deal with these types of improvements. So in often cases you end up with, and again, I'll pick on detention ponds, you end up with a facility that has a specific purpose and is designed to function a certain way, but it's in the corner and it's forgotten. With a metropolitan district, the opportunity exists because you have a much more sophisticated structure. It's not a lot different from a city council. You have an elected board, you have terms, you have transparency, you have requirements to be met for the Department of Local Government, and you have to meet all those particular requirements. You also have an engineer that's retained by the district, and that engineer helps make sure that you maintain things that you're responsible for, like detention facilities. So you have a means to take care of a lot of these facilities that you wouldn't otherwise. Some of the more significant differences between an HOA and a metro district are, and I mentioned the opportunity to elect the board, so you don't have Mr. Putz who decides he wants to be on the board and you can't pry him off, and there's no real way to do that. You have transparency and you have requirements that must be met. The board is also obligated to establish a budget every year, and that budget needs to be submitted to DOLA, and it must be audited on an annual basis as well. The district receives its funds through its mill levy, and those funds come in through the county treasurer's office, just like any other local government. Those funds are tax deductible. And in the instance of a homeowners association, you have a fee, which is again generally determined in a back room, and that fee, not only can you not deduct it from your taxes, you have to actually include that when you're qualifying for a home, because that becomes a part and parcel of what your mortgage payment is. So that eliminates just that many more people from an ability to buy a home because they have to do that. Those are the primary reasons. The sheet that you have here gives you some of the numbers, and I'm up here without glasses, so I can't tell you exactly what it says.
I'll make it part of the record.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, and then, so a couple questions on the sheet. One was if there's a property with an HOA, the price of the average home was a little bit higher than with a district and no HOA. So could you maybe explain why the house prices would be lower with and without an HOA? What was your rationale? Is it because the infrastructure is embedded within the mill levies when you got your bonds and you're doing the infrastructure and it's not embedded in the house cost?
That's absolutely correct, and I should have stated that previously.
I'm just also helping educate our public as well as...
You're absolutely right. If we are in a position, and we had a portion of this conversation with the Ralston Ridge project that Mr. Daly references, there are improvements that we are obligated as developers to complete. Without a metro district, then all of those costs get added to what the lot cost will be, and that's what the builder pays for the lot, and in turn passes on to the homeowner. And it's an increased cost because we have to pay that, and they have to reimburse us for that. If you use a metropolitan district, you're able to take that infrastructure cost, and we're talking about just public infrastructure. We're not talking about anything else. Streets, utilities, park and open space kind of facilities, perimeter fencing, entryway monumentation, drainage facilities, all get factored in. And if you're able to utilize a metropolitan district, you can utilize municipal financing, which is extraordinarily inexpensive, and that gets paid through the district. The bonds are sold to reimburse that particular cost. The price of the lot goes down because that's paid separately through the mill levy, and the ultimate house cost is significantly less.
And so my last question is, so there's some normal operating costs that are covered, and without an HOA, I'm assuming the district picks up things like the trash, any common area maintenance, including, I think some of these areas are condos. Are those covered within those metropolitan district fees or operating
They are.
costs? Okay.
All of that, it costs the same to mow the grass, but in this case, you have the district do it, and the issue with the operation and maintenance cost is critical because you need to have that opportunity to have those costs through the mill levy as well, and then that way there's no additional fees associated with it, and
There's no gotcha fees for the residents that will live there.
Correct.
And then you would be maintaining these parks until, or are they going to be handed over to the city to be maintaining?
In the case of this particular project, the area at the north end that we were leaving as a natural
Open space,
that will become city park. But all the other open space and park facilities within the community will be owned and maintained by the Metro District.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Ms. Ford.
Mr. Elliott, I just had one question to ask you. And in our conversation last week, when it was mentioned that as part of the conversation with neighbors, you had agreed to possibly do some improvement to the Ridge property in the entryway on 52nd. Is that a part of the 2.2 million, or is that something separate?
That would not be a part of the 2.255 million. That would be separate.
Okay. And then I just had one question for Matt. You mentioned before that you felt like the 40% was a good figure in terms of the contract with Wheat Ridge, the intergovernmental contract. Was that based on a number of units that each city was proposing to have? Because I've heard a lot of conversation that it sounds like Wheat Ridge is going to have a lot of units.
I'm going to let John answer that question because I wasn't a part of those conversations with Wheat Ridge.
Yes, so the 40% that you're referring to is a negotiated responsibility between the City of Arvada, another 40% with Wheat Ridge, and another 20% with Jefferson County. Of the 40% responsibility for the city of Arvada, 60% is what we're looking at for the projects that are making their request here tonight. So essentially, that's also a estimate based on the amount of traffic and population that they're adding through these projects into that vicinity.
Mr. Pfeiffer?
If there's no other questions, I'll make a motion, but I do have 2 questions for staff before I do that.
You may proceed.
One is, so that intersection we're contributing to, it's not in the city of Arvada. It's, I think it's Jefferson County, if I remember correctly, part of it is, and Wheat Ridge, right?
It's actually a CDOT facility. Ward and 52nd, is that what you're referring to?
Well, 2 things. I want to know what jurisdiction it sits in, because we have to work at accidents, and right now I believe it's State Patrol because it's county. So we're now making a very large intersection that's not, whose jurisdiction? Not necessarily CDOT's, but...
Yes, so it's in the Wheat Ridge and Jefferson County jurisdictions. It's
Okay,
split.
So we're making a very large intersection, and I think quality of service might be of some concern, so we need to make sure we're watching that, because if I recall correctly, if we go from Drake Middle School, which we get a lot of phone calls about, that's Arvada across the street, then we go into the county, and I think the county actually goes past the intersections. I think then it goes into Wheat Ridge, then Arvada, Wheat Ridge, Arvada, County, Arvada, something like that. It's just clarity of who's responding, and we're creating a big intersection there. So one, we need to make sure we're really clear on ownership. I mean, it's another horse tooth in it. But then who's going to maintain it after we invest the $5-6 million as communities? Who's going to maintain it?
So, Councilmember Pfeiffer, that's part of what's getting worked out in the IGA.
Okay.
That would be part of the conditions of the IGA.
Okay, so we haven't talked to CDOT about it, even though they're not contributing to it.
CDOT's actually been part of the discussions that we've had, that Wheat Ridge has had in particular on the planning level for the intersection improvements, but the exact conditions that you're discussing are in the process of being identified and defined in the IGA.
And can you keep us posted on that? I want to make sure we're, it's a little confusing in that area of who owns where it's at.
Sure.
Level of service. I think I struggle with the confusion of our community in that area, and we just really need to be really clear with our partners.
You bet.
Okay. I'll make a motion.
You may.
Is it this long thing that I got to read here? Yes. Holy cow. I think we got to talk to our attorneys about that. Let me start with it. I move that, or unless somebody else wants to do the motion, I move that Resolution 18-098, a resolution approving the proposed service plan for the Haskins Station Metropolitan District, be approved subject to the recommended conditions of approval, as I will now state. First, the district shall ensure that all developers of the property located within such district provide written notice to all future purchasers of property in the district prior to the purchase, disclosing that the maximum debt MEL levy, as well as the general description of the district's authority to impose and collect rates, fees, tolls, and charges, or other revenues. The form of notice shall be filed with the city manager and community development director prior to the initial issuance of debt of the district imposing the MEL levy that is subject to of the maximum debt MEL levy. All promotional, marketing, and sales information shall display notice at least equal in size and font to all other pertinent information as to the debt, taxes, rates, fees, and the authority to impose such, and this information shall further be recorded at the Jefferson County with the plat and title. Number 2, with the IGA underway, the city wants to be certain that the regional contribution funds will be available when needed. Therefore, the $2,255,213.20. 20 cents, Mr. Elliott. I'll be counting pennies. Regional cash contribution shall be provided to the city within 30 days immediately following the bond issuance, or the district approval shall be considered null and void. Number 3, the applicant shall provide to the city for review and approval the specific standards to be used to exceed today's standard practices and the Colorado Green Belt program prior to full approval of the Haskell Metropolitan District, or the district shall be considered null and void, as well as a correction to the service plan that is on page 11. Page 11, the word not, is there a paragraph number? Third paragraph of section I, the word not to exceed, I believe it was $36 million, right? The word not was missing. Shall not apply. Shall not apply. To the operating maintenance levy. Thank you. Looking for approval.
Motions for approval of the resolution. All votes are cast. That passes 6-0, Mr. Jones being an excused absence. Thank you. Okay, next we'll do R18099, a resolution approving the proposed service plan for the Sabel Metropolitan Districts number 1 and 2. Can we just say ditto?
Well, we can, Mr. Mayor, but I think it is important to point out that this being a different development and a smaller development, the financial impact that would occur if the City Council approves the service plan would be a regional contribution of $1,174,786, and in this case, 80 cents for the improvements at in the area that was described thoroughly in the last agenda item.
Very good. Okay, Mr. Elliott, do you have anything further to add on this one, or do we have another present? Oh, good, we got a different one.
Hi, how you doing? Mayor, City Council, men and women. We're excited to be a part of what
State your name for the record.
Matthew Cavanaugh with Remington Homes. We're excited to be a part of this this contribution. We see this intersection as an improvement that's going to improve the entire area. The circulation and traffic on Ward Road is a concern. We've heard it at our hearings at Sabel as well as through Haskins. So with any questions, we got Megan here as well, and be happy to answer.
Very good. Is there any member of the public that would like to address City Council on this one? Seeing none from council?
Megan Murphy, White Bear Ankley, different development, same lawyer, same mistake on page 11. Surprise, surprise. So I apologize, and thank you for including that in your motion. Yes.
Okay. I'll close the public comment portion. And we're going to switch it over to Mr. Marriott for this one.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that R18-099, a resolution approving the proposed service plan for the Sabel Metropolitan District numbers 1 and 2 be approved, subject to the recommended conditions of approval shown below. Number 1, the district shall ensure that all developers of the property located within such district provide written notice to all future purchasers of property in the district prior to purchase, disclosing the maximum debt mill levy as well as a general description of the district's authority to impose and collect rates, fees, tolls, and charges or other revenues. The form of notice shall be filed with the city manager and community development director prior to the initial issuance of the debt of the district imposing the mill levy, that is the subject of the maximum debt mill levy. All promotional, marketing, and sales information shall display notice at least equal in size and font to all other pertinent information as to debt, taxes, rates, fees, and the authority to impose such. And this information shall further be recorded at Jefferson County with the plat and title. 2, with the IGA underway, the city wants to be certain that regional contribution funds will be available when needed. Therefore, the $1,174,786.80 regional cash contribution shall be provided to the city within 30 days immediately following bond issuance, or the district approval shall be considered null and void. 3, the applicant shall provide to the city for review and approval the specific standards to be used to exceed today's standard practices and the Colorado Green Belt program prior to full approval of the Sabel Metropolitan District, or the district shall be considered null and void. And 4, making the change on page 11 of the service plan, third paragraph under I, to include the word shall not.
Motions for approval? You just have more chance to... There you go. All votes are cast. That passes 6-0. Let me echo the words of our city manager and city attorney. I do appreciate the cooperation between our staff, the applicants, in terms of these two projects, recognizing the importance of these regional improvements and the need to address the cost of them in a responsible and prudent fashion, so that we're adequately addressing some of the traffic issues that are plaguing our city right now, and also will continue to plague as appropriate development occurs. So thank you all for your work and your cooperation on that. So I've got one more matter, and that's the citizen comments on the 2019 Annual Action Plan, proposed use of year 2019 CDBG funds and year 2018 funding from the Human Services Funding Pool. I've got one person who's signed up at this point, Margot Sabansky and Karen Praminko from the Karen Clinic. Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. I'm Margot Sobosinski, Executive Director and one of the nurse practitioners that provide care at the Karen Clinic. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As you probably know, the City of Arvada has a lower rate of poverty than Jefferson County and the City and County of Denver. Likewise, the City of Arvada has a higher median income than the rest of the state of Colorado. However, in parts of Arvada, specifically zip code 80002 and 8003, 16.5% of the families with children under the age of 18 are living in poverty. These are the children that Karen Clinic is dedicated to serve, and Karen Clinic has been their safety net clinic for over 20 years. Karen Clinic provides complete primary care for children from birth to 18 years. This includes well child checks, immunizations, care for minor acute illnesses such as ear infections and rashes, and care for chronic illnesses such as asthma. We also have an on-site mental health counselor from JCMH. When asked what Karen Clinic means to them, one of our patients wrote, quote, "Karen Clinic means peace of mind that my children are cared for and treated with love and respect. I am grateful for all the staff, how they go above and beyond for my family." I'm very thankful to work at Karen Clinic and thankful for the support that we've received from the City of Arvada. In the past year, the clinic has served over 800 children with over 2,000 visits to the clinic. We are now located at 51st and Allison on the same campus as Head Start and WIC, both entities that also serve for low-income children. To speak about the history of the Karen Clinic, I am honored to introduce one of the people whose vision and compassion made the clinic possible, one of the founding mothers of Karen Clinic, Karen Praminko.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. It was in March of 1993 that I came to the City Council to ask for some funds, CDBG funds, to start a clinic. And I was given that grant, we were given that grant, and the clinic then opened in the next September, in September of '93. We started it in a corner of a classroom at Arvada Middle School. It might have been Arvada Junior at that time, and we were open 3 evenings a week. We now are open 5 days a week. We have on-call services, and we provide services to many children from the area. And I want to thank you very much for your support of this project through the years. It's been tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Praminko. Anyone else wish to address City Council on this? Okay, I'll close the public comment on the citizen comments on that issue. No action is necessary on this tonight. Is that correct, Mr. Daly?
That's correct.
Very good. Next, I'll open it up for public comment. If anyone else has any public comment they want to present to us tonight. Seeing none, I'll close that, and I'll turn it over to City Council for reports. Anyone have any reports? Mr. McGough.
Yes, thank you. I think it's worth making note that the kind of a milestone in our area has been achieved, and that is the opening of the Rocky Flats Wildlife Area to the public, and the hiking trails opened this past weekend. I was sorry that I was unable to participate in the opening day festivities, but I understand there are, I think it's 11 miles of trail that are open now. And the visitor center is yet to come, but the trails are open. Testing will continue in accordance with our direction and our funding, along with other local governments. But the wildlife refuge is in fact open. So just thought we should take note of that.
Very good. A couple of individuals I want to mention tonight. We lost a retired attorney from our community, Don Cleaney, who had been a practicing attorney here in Jefferson County for many, many years, passed away here in the last couple of weeks, and was just a great gentleman, a lawyer's lawyer, very professional, and just a courteous man who was involved in a number of civic organizations and gave back a lot to the city of Arvada. He'll be missed. And secondly, on a much happier note, former Mayor Bob Free was recognized by the First Judicial District Bar Association on Saturday night with the Fred Myers Professionalism Award. Very well deserved, and a nice honor for former Mayor Free, who has obviously given very much to this community and was recognized for his integrity, his honesty, and his professionalism by the legal community. Mr. McGough.
Yes, thank you. With your mention of the passing of Don Cleaney, I think it's appropriate to that served as a reminder that we take note of the passing of Mr. Jack Raven. Jack, at age 87, passed away this last week. He was an Arvada native, was born over on the other side of the Wadsworth bypass, near where the pizza place is over there. And Jack lived his entire life in Arvada, other than his time in the military. And he was very active in the Arvada Historical Society, and conducted many tours of the Arvada Flour Mill, and conducted tours and provided information in a variety of areas related to the history of Arvada. Served as the president of the Historical Society, as well as in other offices of the society. So he will definitely be missed. He contributed significantly to the history of Arvada over the years.
Thank you for that remembrance as well. Mr. Devon?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, next week we'll have part one of our budget workshop with approximately half the departments presenting their key performance measures and total dollars requested, et cetera, some high points of each of their budgets, changes that will be highlighted, and that will start next week, and then we'll have the second half on October 8th.
Very much. Mr. Daly? Very good. We stand adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good evening.